Hi everyone. Let us refresh our memories and imagine what we have discussed so far about drama. We had a lecture on the origin and development of drama in Greek times, and then we examined and understood the concept of what drama really is. Last time we discussed plot and action, and we tried to differentiate between a story and a plot in the context of drama. Today we start with the origin and development of English drama with the assumption that we have the background information on Greek drama. So we say the concept of drama was already there. How did the English writers develop and then owned it would form the content of our lecture. In medieval English society, religion and the religious class were enjoying ascendancy, and life would revolve around what was taught and practiced in the church. As was found in Greek times, English people also saw the seeds of drama in religious rituals and festivals. In English literature in medieval times, we notice an early form of drama that is called liturgical drama. As is evident from its name, it related to liturgy, or you can say certain church rituals or the way they worshipped. And this form of drama would be meant to be performed inside the church. The main objective was to educate and to teach and to give moral lessons to the churchgoers. Initially, in the 12th century, we see that these dramas were in the Latin language and they would be performed inside the church. But slowly and gradually, we see that with the course of time, the element from the vernacular, the local flavor, was getting mixed in these rituals. The subject matter was devotional, but the vernacular element kept creeping in, which expanded the themes from purely liturgical to other Christian themes. Another shift that was witnessed was that after some time, the performance moved out of the church into the churchyard and then into the marketplace or even to the nearby meadows where people would come and witness these plays. With each passing year, English would replace Latin and the local element, or the vernacular would get stronger. A time came when Latin was virtually no more there, and English became the language of these plays. Similarly, other themes from sacred religious history, apart from the strictly religious rituals, were introduced. Just to clarify and to make your understanding easy, as I believe some of you would be a bit confused when we say that it moved away from liturgy to sacred history. It means that in the initial times, the scope of liturgical drama was very limited, and it was specifically focused on worship and the specific church rituals, but the sacred history would include religious stories, lessons in morality, and other stories and events that were considered sacred in Christianity, but they were not strictly relevant to the worship scheme. Thus, we have a play that is less liturgical and includes the vernacular element and the sacred history as part of the themes. I hope you can now sense the change from the beginning till now. If yes, then we say that this improved form of drama is what we call the miracle plays. Thus, we say that miracle plays are the improved or the developed form of liturgical drama. In other words, as soon as the plays were out of the church, the church premises, and the themes extended from the church rituals to sacred history, they became a source of entertainment and formed, uh, or you can say, were included in the events that would entertain people at large. So more and more people got involved in performing and watching them. The element of entertainment in the miracle plays attracted the trade guilds to invest in them and to sponsor their performance far and wide. This led to the introduction of wagon stage performances where the players would move around and would perform the plays in cities or in the countryside. The history of miracle plays is full of several cycles, including Chester and Coventry cycles. For instance, the Chester cycle included plays related to the creation, the fall, Abraham and Isaac, etc. Thus, we see a variety of religious content introduced in miracle plays. We have stories like Adam and Eve, and again Abraham and Isaac and the Exodus in the York cycle. Likewise, you can find the same pattern in the Wakefield cycle. Now, I request special attention. The miracle plays are popular and enjoyed. Means we are in a time in history where the miracle plays are popular, people are enjoying it, but there is another form of drama emerging on the scene. This new form is what we call the morality plays. But for us, it is important to know the difference between miracle and morality plays. Very simple. A little more space for moralizing and general moral problems make us call it a morality play. Let me have my own understanding of the history we have discussed so far. If a play is rituals or worship specific, I call it liturgical. But if you add sacred history to its themes, it becomes a miracle play for me. And if general moral problems are also made part of it, then I label it a morality play. I also want to make another clarification. When we talk about these different dramatic forms, it is not intended to imply that one form replaced the other. They could have or they would have existed side by side. So back to our discussion, morality plays did not directly deal with biblical stories, but its scope was broader than that, and it included in its subject matter addressing different vices and virtues and the struggle that humans make while fighting them and implementing a scheme, you can say a virtuous scheme in their lives. For instance, mankind's association with the 7 deadly sins and the 7 cardinal virtues. we may assume that in morality plays, the scope was one step broader than miracle plays. One good example of a morality play is the 15th century Everyman. In this play, a man's quest for salvation and for eternal success is the theme, where he is suffering because of his sins. Later, with the help of knowledge, and when he repents and starts doing good deeds, he in the end enters his grave and the angel declares him successful. This is how these morality plays were about moralizing and teaching people about the good and the bad. Morality plays proved more flexible in accommodating general moral problems in the 15th century. Such problems may not necessarily fall in the domain of religion. Thus, to achieve this end, morality plays started moving out of strictly religious content. When these developments were taking place in morality plays, they became more realistic or comic in dealing with different themes. Now, attention please. Once the themes were generalized and elements of realism and comic representation were introduced, we call this developed form of drama the interlude. Now, talking about the interlude, as these interludes were open to foreign influences and less religious, or maybe without religious content, we can say that it opened for secular themes. And that is why most of the historians believe that the interlude marks the transition from the medieval religious drama to modern secular drama. In the interlude included worldly themes and topics like education instead of salvation and politics instead of religion. Several social, religious, and political debates were included in the spirit of the Reformation movement. I hope you remember when we talked about the Reformation, and that I do not need to go into its details. So, moving forward, we come to 1566 AD, where we mark the appearance of prose in English drama in George's play Supposes. And then you have the comments, you can say, or the observation or the conclusion that David Deutsch draws from his explanation of this evolution of drama. So you can read this quote for yourself, and I will prefer moving forward. In the era of Queen Elizabeth, we notice that not only the Queen but many of her associates and her court members patronized dramatic performance. They erected and established theaters. So we have public theaters and private theaters, and then many people started writing dramas. The authors and the actors grew in number, and the theater became a source of living for many people. Professionalism developed among authors and actors. Many companies of players were formed who would offer their acting services to different theaters. Secular themes were widely appreciated, and there were many young people who would look for performing or writing dramas in order to earn their living. One such group of young men young men was the University Wits, who were a group of young men with graduates from Oxford or Cambridge. They saw the theatre as a great source to display their talent and to earn their living. The group is historically famous for its contribution to English drama. When we analyze the different works of the University Wits, the dramas they wrote contributed a lot to giving or rendering a literary and dramatic sense to the Elizabethan drama. The group included many writers like John Lilly, Robert Greene, George Peele, Thomas Lodge, Thomas Kidd, Thomas Nash, and Christopher Marlowe. We will discuss Christopher Marlowe's life and works in the next lecture. We may not be able to mention the plays of the University Wits here, but we should remember that they were having ample knowledge and exposure to the classical legends, and that is why we see that in their writings they borrowed profusely from the Greek and Roman legendary writers. They wrote both comedies and tragedies. To give you just one example before we conclude, Thomas Kidd's The Spanish Tragedy was a great success. It was highly recommended and appreciated by theatre lovers at that time. The play had the themes of love, conspiracy, murder, and revenge. These themes were of value for other writers like Shakespeare, who borrowed extensively, or you can say manipulated or localized these themes in his plays. To sum up, in this lecture, we tried to understand the history and development of English drama from medieval times to the 16th century. Now, I will be confident to talk about Christopher Marlowe in the next lecture. So stay tuned. Thank you and have a nice time.